Kia ora tātou, welcome to this video where we look at how changing the concentration of an equilibrium reaction affects the position of the equilibrium. So we'll take our theoretical equilibrium reaction again, and so these reactants and products could either be in the aqueous form, that would be the one that we would know, be the familiar with the most, so they would all be aqueous, and that would mean that in a solution, let's say we had a solution that was like 1 litre, that would mean that there would be a certain number of particles of reactants and products in that solution. So what could happen in this situation is that you might get a question that says a certain number, well, that more A or more B has been added to the system. And so if we add more B particles, then that is going to mean that we're going to increase the number of those particles. Because we won't be changing the volume, we're going to increase the number of particles per volume. And so that's the definition of concentration. So by adding more particles to the same volume, we are increasing the concentration of that reactant. And what we looked at in the last video on the Chatelier's principle is that if we impose a change on the system by changing the concentration of the reactants, for example, then the reaction is going to move in the forward direction to use up some of those extra B particles that have been added and produce more products. So that's one situation that we could get a question on, is if we've got an aqueous solution. But I'll just talk about if these were in fact not aqueous, they could be gas as well. And we can still change the concentration of a gas because we can have a certain number of these particles in a volume of space. So it'll be gas, 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 and then gas. So if instead of it being in a solution, let's say just we've got a particular area there, this might be, we might have that many A particles, and then if we add some more A particles into that same space, then that would mean that we are increasing the concentration of those A particles. And the exact same result would happen, that we would use up some of those A particles that have been added to produce more products. Yeah, so that is changing the concentration of an equilibrium reaction. So let's have a look at a past exam question. So the following equilibrium was established in the laboratory by mixing iron nitrate with potassium thiocyanate. So we've got orange, colourless, and dark red reactants and products. The forward reaction produces heat. Explain using equilibrium principles the effect on the colour of the solution if more potassium thiocyanate solution is added to the reaction mixture. So potassium thiocyanate, or effectively that's just going to be thiocyanate, if we add that, let's break this down into 3 parts that we need to answer. So first of all is what has changed. So in this case we have increased the concentration of SCN, therefore we've increased the concentration of the reactants. So how will the system react? The system react or respond. And this is where we kind of talk about the minimizing the change in a imposed on a system. So we would say the reaction will move to minimize the change imposed. Let's move down. So let's just talk about what that means. So that will mean that so therefore more products will be produced in order to use the additional reactants. And so what will be the effect of this? Well, if we have a look back at the equilibrium reaction, we have increased the amount of this. So we've created more products in order to use up the thiocyanate ions. So the result will be that the solution will turn more red. Solution turns more red. So that's all we would need to write there. Let's have a look at what the model answer would be. So adding thiocyanate ions to the equilibrium means that there is an increase in the concentration of a reactant. The system will react to reduce this change, so the forward reaction will be favoured to use up the added thiocyanate ions, producing more red iron thiocyanate ions. This means the dark red colour will intensify. So that's, effectively what we've gone through. We've got the first stage of that, which is saying what would happen, the next part, which is saying how the system would react, and then the third part saying what the effect would be. So if you get a concentration equilibrium question, just go through those three stages to it. What has been done, how will the system respond, and then what effect will this have. So I hope that's helpful for you. In the next video we will look at the effect of changing pressure on a system. Thanks, see you then.